Well, it is finally here. Game week, game one, week one of the NFL season has finally arrived. Welcome in a Tuesday edition of the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Great to have you along. Going to be hanging with you until 1 o'clock today. Coming up next hour, right around 12:30. Longtime columnist, everybody knows him in this town. He's certainly one of the more respected voices when it comes to covering the sports scene for Cleveland. Has authored many books, and just phenomenal guy. We'll talk to Terry Pluto coming up at 12:30. Get his thoughts on the upcoming campaign as the Browns and the Bengals are set to do battle coming up Sunday at 1 o'clock at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Before we go any further, made the announcement Sunday at 10 o'clock. Folks, it's going to be off the charts. It really is. Sunday, 10 o'clock, Burke Lakefront Airport. We're going to be set up. We're going to have a stage set up here at Burke. You won't miss it. And we're basically going to have a 2-hour party getting ready for the game. There's going to be adult beverages for you to consume. There's going to be plenty of food for you to consume. There's going to be plenty of fun. We're going to be doing a show. It'll be myself, Nick Padone, Josh Cribbs, Hanford Dixon going to be stopping by. I mean, this is going to be for most home games, this is what we're going to be doing. It's going to be phenomenal. And it starts this Sunday at 10 a.m. It's going to be great. What can I tell you? So if you've seen the posts, we've been putting it out there, and I've been telling you over the last couple of weeks that we've got something in the works. We got something brewing, and now it's finally time to talk about it and, of course, to get after it, and we will in a big way coming up on Sunday, 10 a.m., as Big Play broadcasts live, getting ready for the Browns and the Bengals week one. All right, good to have you along. 216-626-7901. Again, 216-626-7901. You can also find us on Twitter, where we tweet the show live stream at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube. If you're not subscribing, get there, Chico Bormann Show, and subscribe. Also, subscribe. You can get it on in podcast form. We're going to be starting on iHeartRadio, so it's going to be like you're going to be listening to a live radio show like you would get us or used to get us maybe. So it's blown up as far as the accessibility, where you can get it, how you can get it. Things are starting to come together, and what a great time to have it come together as we are ready for week one of the NFL season coming up this Sunday. Actually, this Thursday. Detroit and Kansas City coming up on Thursday. And then the Browns and Bengals coming up Sunday. Now, the only thing that is dampening my spirits a little bit right now is I still don't know what's going to happen with Denzel Ward. We don't know what's going to happen with Denzel Ward. Now that it's game week, now that it's here, now that that's a very, very big piece of the Browns puzzle. Not just for the whole season, but certainly for Sunday, because as we've said many times, and you folks know it, this season goes, it goes right out of the gate. 0 to 60, we're going right out of the gate with the Cincinnati Bengals, followed by the Steelers, then the Titans, and the Ravens. I mean, it is not going to be waiting on anybody. Denzel Ward has had a lot of success against the Bengals. He's one of the best corners in the league. Health has been a concern. And all indications were, and if I'm wrong on this, somebody please tell me, but he was injured like well into that game against Kansas City. And this is not me saying, this is not a hindsight 2020 thing. Remember, I got into this with Fanboy Nick about the joint practices. And he said, I don't like the joint practices. They breed, and we had a good debate, but basically, you got to get time. You've got to have these guys get ready as they can be. Under the new CBA, it's impossible, in my opinion, for guys to be ready to go, at least like they were years ago. It's just not going to happen. There's safety concerns. There's lawsuit concerns, which are part of the safety concerns, what Roger Goodell won't tell you. But it is what it is. So when you get the opportunity to go against ones and starters like you do in joint practices, yes, you want to take advantage of this. This is not me going back on that. This is me saying you've been extremely careful, as you should have, with certain guys, one of those guys being Denzel Ward. So what in God's name was he doing against the Kansas City Chiefs against like second and third teamers? That's the only thing that is bothering me a bit. From a human standpoint, hell, I hope he's going to be okay. This is certainly now becoming a big concern. It has been a concern for him. Fourth documented concussion. Is he going to be ready? I don't know. I mean, we have no idea. They're off today. They'll be back at it tomorrow. As far as practice, and I mean game week practice, and this is where those guys are getting out there. So, we'll know sooner rather than later. Now, I shouldn't say that. Could he get through concussion protocol at the last moment? Yeah, but there are steps, and this is where it's not like I was telling a buddy of mine here before the show started. Like, we think of concussions back then, it's just like, how many fingers do I have? 2. All right, you're good. Like, it doesn't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. You have protocol, and a lot of times we've just gotten used to saying protocol. What is protocol? Well, I can't tell you every detail, but essentially there's a load of tests, and then you go out in the field, and then you slowly but surely ramp up to game speed and hitting and contact and all that stuff to make sure you're okay. So, is Denzel Ward going to be available? I don't know. Would Denzel Ward sway me one way or the other, or you one way or the other, in terms of picking the Browns and Bengals? Things that make you go, on the Chico Bormann Show. Bohm, bring in producer Michael Bohm. He had a long weekend as well. We spent some time at the Air Show. Bohm, I got to give you credit. You're a trooper, and we were with paratroopers, on Saturday. But so Padone and I ended up with just an awesome opportunity to get up and go with the Golden Knights. We talked to Nahu Ramirez on Thursday. I didn't even know if it was going to happen, but we got up there. He videoed it. If you haven't checked it out, I've tweeted it out. Big Place tweeted it out. But I was telling Nick, I'm like, I don't know if Bohm's going to stick around or not because, hey, I didn't know when we get done. And that's the other thing. Nick's like, do you know what time we'll be back? Like, well,
are we going to see the Ohio State game?
Roughly, or he had like dinner plans, and I honestly, I had nothing on the agenda. Yes, I wanted to watch Ohio State, and we'll get into that as the show goes along and the week goes along. But I just figured, hey, I would get an opportunity to do this, whatever they ask me to do, however long it is. I'm on their turf, and I'm just gonna, or in their air, I guess is the way to say it, rarefied air, and I'm just gonna, try to get out of the way. But I remember, as we were taxiing down the runway, I look out and I can see you. I can see Bohm off in the distance. I'm like, well, he's still here. You stuck around the entire day until we made it back. You were like kind of like the parent waiting for your kid to get off the ride. I really appreciated it, Bohm.
Yeah, I mean, it was also my first time actually attending the air show, and like an F-22 was roaring through the skies. So
Wow.
I had a few things to hold me over. Went and got a little bite to eat while I was waiting for you guys to get back, because it took you guys a while before those parachutists like actually started jumping.
Yeah.
To get up in the air, you guys were up there for a minute.
Yeah.
I was curious about that too, but you made it back just in the nick of time to catch kickoff on the way home.
So could you see? You could see the plane circling then?
I was keeping an eye on it. There were times when I lost it, like behind the buildings and whatnot. But yeah, I was keeping an eye on it the whole time.
What's funny is I was losing track. Like I knew we weren't far because obviously they're parachuting down here. But as they're going up and I'm just trying to take everything in and Nahu was kind of briefing me a little bit of what's going on and the other guys and so I kind of lost track as far as like where we are exactly. So I'm like, we reached like 8,000 feet and they're still doing, I said it on the video and I'm not going to go, into the whole thing today because we've got, a ton to get to with the Browns and college football, Terry Pluto at 12:30. But Bohm, the one thing that truly amazed me had nothing to do with guys leaving a plane, jumping out of the plane. I mean, that in and of itself, pretty incredible. But Morgan George was the guy who was like, he was kind of sitting on the edge, right? And he was like, that door never closed. That's another thing. Nick and I, we both thought the door eventually was going to close. Now you say, well, idiots, where do you think they're going to jump out of? I thought eventually it would open. I don't know. I mean, I've never done this. So as we're going to like 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, the door's still wide open. I'm like, all right. This is how we roll. This is how they roll. But Morgan George is like he's got the most experience of all of them. He's basically kneeling down right at the edge of that door, okay? And he's just kind of like surveying stuff and he's doing some he'd motion to the pilot like, 4 and push and down and I'm like, I said to Nahu, I said, what's he doing? And he's like, oh, he's getting the wind and this airspeed and the conditions. And so when we jump, and again, they're going on a target. They're landing on a target like as big as this.
Yeah, he said it was like the size of a dinner plate, right?
Yes. And that's what he's doing up there. So I'm thinking to myself, if you think this is all, I mean, certainly the athletic ability and the, training, I'm not, of course. But here's a guy doing equations in his head, factoring in wind speed and doing like high-level physics, 8,000 feet in the air with his knees like right near the edge of the plane so these guys can get out and land on a target the size of a dinner plate. Like next level. So it was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Ken Miles, thank you for allowing us the opportunity. Obviously, the paratroopers, the Golden Knights. It was an incredible, incredible afternoon, something I'll never forget.
It's really cool that you were able to make that a reality too, because it's something where you planted the seed that last Tuesday, a week ago, when Nahu was on the show.
Yeah.
And to actually see it culminate was really cool, and I was really excited for you. And then Padone getting to go on too was perfect because we needed a content guy to capture that moment.
Right, and I think I'll be the first to say this: if Padone doesn't go up with me, then I mean we have some footage, but it's not like I don't know. I filming and editing and what Padone was. It doesn't happen without him, and then he got it all the footage together. We're up there for a while. He condensed it into a 2-minute video, and it's phenomenal. And it's got everything. I mean, from beginning to walking into the plane to in flight, them jumping out to landing. It was just amazing, amazing stuff.
And your buddy Coleman checks in on YouTube, and you can comment too at the Chico Bormann Show on YouTube or Twitter. But he says, "You couldn't get me on that plane, Chico?"
Well, now see, Coleman, full disclosure, I'm not gonna disclose all the major details, but he's a buddy of mine who happens to work here also at Burke Lakefront Airport, and he is a flight instructor. He's been dodging me, Bohm, for like, I want to get in a plane. I want to go. And he's, and there's, okay, legalities, whatever. No, it is a big deal. I know he has to. But that's why I didn't think it was going to happen. And then their big thing, now I'm signing a waiver. This was awesome, too.
Oh, so you did sign a waiver?
I had to sign a waiver. They hand you a folder, and at the top of the waiver, it just says, United States of America. Like, I'm signing, you know what I mean? I didn't even really read it. It was, look, you're going up here. You have the pleasure of going up here. If something happens, sorry. You know what I mean? Like, so signed it, and yeah, but Coleman, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I thought Coleman would be able to pull some more strings to get me up in one of his planes out here that he teaches in, but it hasn't happened. So I had to count on the Golden Knights to get it done, Coleman. So how about that?
The last thing, and I'll let you move on after this, but when was the last time you'd actually flown on a plane prior to that?
Oh, wow. A couple years ago, my oldest nephew's wedding in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
And I had a layover. Did I have a layover? Yes, I had a layover in, I think, Raleigh, in Durham, and then to Houston, and then back. But yeah, that was the last time I flew.
Yeah, because I flew last month for the first time in over a decade. It was kind of wild. But
did you for your gigs? You flew for that?
I had to, because I had an obligation here. And so I had to meet them without any rehearsals or anything, like at the first venue.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, it was a chaotic trip, rushing through the airport. I had a connecting flight. I thought I was going to miss it, but the time on my ticket was not like the departure time; it was the boarding time. And so it was hectic.
Okay, you're putting this one on a tee, so I'm just going to take a huge swing. Now that you said that, boom, you are the last guy I would expect to ever make a flight on time, ever.
It was a connecting flight, though. I was already held back by my prior flight. You know, like I'm getting off after the boarding time on the ticket.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at this.
I was sprinting through the airport, though. I was that guy.
Oh yeah, which you're doing every day. Since I've known you, the very first time I met Michael Bohm, it was not him playing a guitar at a concert. It was not. It was him running through the Halley building downtown, sprinting. Sweating, forehead covered in sweat.
Profusely.
My show started at 7 p.m., and here comes this new board up. He's strolling at about 6:56 and 30, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's the new guy. Nothing's changed since, but he does a great job.
Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, other than that, you do.
My one red flag.
Yeah.
Professionally speaking.
Just time. It's just still starts at 11.
Time is relative.
So you get in at noon, Yeah. Hey, oh! I finished it. Didn't like the fade to black, but we'll get to that.
You didn't like it? In some ways,
I didn't like the ending. Yeah, it was kind of
that. It was a very controversial finish.
All right, so we've got game week coming up. Terry Pluto is going to join us from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com at 12:30. Get his thoughts on all things Browns. I'm very optimistic, and I know, you can say, well, we all are every year. I'm not. Usually I'm the guy getting killed by the fans, and, well, you should be more optimistic, and if you were more optimistic, maybe they'd win more games, which I've long thought is the dumbest thing anyone's ever said to me on the radio. And I've had a lot of crazy things, and I've said a lot of crazy things. But the person that honestly believes, and there are some people out there that honestly believe that if we in the media were more optimistic when the Browns were, just horrible, that it would have helped them win games. No. Showing up to the studio with pom-poms, A, is never going to happen. B, has nothing to do with a team winning or losing. Zero. But how can you not be optimistic this year? There's the same concerns, not the same concerns personnel-wise, but same concerns in terms of expectations and not meeting expectations. But now, unlike years ago for the Browns, the expectations are legitimate. As far as just from a talent standpoint, the expectations are legitimate. Now, the only problem is, and there's other problems involved here, but the big problem is, while they were finding their way, the AFC, now that the Browns finally caught up from a talent standpoint, the AFC has become an absolute juggernaut. So, you having the most talent, as we all know, does mean a lot, but it doesn't mean everything. And now, unfortunately, everybody seemingly is caught up in the AFC, so and including your own division. And we'll find that out coming up on Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. So we got that to talk about. College football. Boom, I remember saying to you, I was reading a tweet while I was waiting. We were waiting to go up with the Golden Knights Saturday. And I was reading a tweet from Chris Fowler, who was a Colorado alum, ESPN, longtime, ESPN game day host and everything. Very good at his job. And he tweeted out, okay, I know it's early and it's only one drive, but my goodness, did that offense look incredible. And then, of course, they went on to do it all day. Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son, and Travis Hunter, the guy doing his Chris Gamble impersonation on both sides of the ball. And Colorado thumps TCU. That's really the story of the weekend. Some other games, but that's the story of the weekend. But you know what upsets me a little bit about Deion's thing is I feel like he kind of ruined it with the victory lap and like why is he calling out Ed Werder? I thought he was just calling out, like, speaking to the public in general. He was actually referring to Ed Werder. And Ed Werder's like, because he works for ESPN, I think Deion it was intended for ESPN. Like, oh, yeah, hey, this is Deion. He's going to make them relevant. But nobody really knew for sure how they do. They looked phenomenal, and that's awesome. Like, this is a great story to follow. But then he comes in the press conference, and he's just, when I found out that he was singling out Ed Werder, I'm like, why? Ed's like, I didn't write it. He's like, you believe now? You believe now? He's like, in God? Yeah. What? What are you talking about? And he's like, you believe? We coming. We come. And it reminds me every time. I love that Deion's doing this because it brings me back to my childhood. Like, as a teenager, I can close my eyes and see and hear Deion Sanders, the player. And that's who he is. And I love that about him. Like, I do. Now, you're in a different role now. You're coaching guys, you're leading guys, and there's going to be they had one of the biggest ups of all time. They had one of the biggest wins of all time. They had one of the biggest, just storybook weekend. There's going to be downtimes too. And so, I don't know how that's going to play, but I can close my eyes and see Deion Sanders. Like when he came back to Atlanta, and the reporters are like, so what's it feel like to be, back in Atlanta and the place you used to play? And he's like, what do you mean? You guys act like I'm a visitor here. They're like, well, you are. You're playing for the, Cowboys or 49ers, whoever it was. And he's like, no. Just like he did on Saturday after the game. He's like, no. Listen to me very closely. This is my house. This is the house that I built. As he's talking about the Atlanta Falcons. That's his Deion. That's Deion all day, every day, and good for Colorado. They wanted to be relevant. They're relevant. They wanted talent. Now, you know what this has come down to, Bohm? We talk about rankings, recruiting rankings. Berm from, Rivals who we have on and all these guys, recruiting services. Do you realize now, like, the transfer portal, you're going to have to do two rankings. You're going to have to do, like, high school recruits and then transfer portal. And that's not knocking anybody. It's the reality. Texas State. I didn't even know Texas State was a real school. I thought it was in a movie. Texas State beat Baylor. You know who had the third most transfers? The third most guys joined via the transfer portal? Texas State. Colorado was number one. Guess who else had a ton with the transfer portal? Florida State. Thumping LSU. Incredible second half. And I'm not, it's not me trying to rain on any parade. It's just, this is college football. So as important as recruiting is and has become and will continue to be, equally as important now is the transfer portal. Who are you getting and how many are you getting? Like, this is the day and age we're in. And so all of a sudden, like you look at, and I think for a while it was more like in hoops, I would notice it. Dickie V would talk about it, and because the rosters are smaller, you would see like, oh, this star player who was a star in the MAC, he's graduated, he's got another year of eligibility, he's going to go play for, Bill Self and maybe, vault himself in the NBA. With football, I'm not going to say you didn't know it was going on. Of course it's going on, but now you're seeing just how prominent a role it has. Colorado, Deion brought talent. There's no doubt about that. Deion brought talent. Colorado brought talent.
Didn't they had the most transfers?
I just said that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Colorado, yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah, Colorado had the most. Texas State. Until Saturday, Texas State, first of all, I didn't even know they were playing Baylor. Secondly, you're not anticipating them beating Baylor or even hanging around against Baylor. They beat Baylor. And then you find out, go look who's third on that list. Texas State. What? This is what you're doing. You have now your job. Boy, you thought these guys put in hours before. This is why the staffs for these schools are so lengthy. If you're a major program, you have guys and gals and scouts, and you have people that their only job. I remember hearing this in basketball, that you'd have assistants, one of your assistants, and his sole job basically was monitoring, other programs and monitoring who's transferring and who could be transferring and who we might be interested in. That's their only job. And yeah, this is where we're at in college athletics. And it's not to say it's good. It's not to say it's bad. It's just, it is what it is. All right. I waited long enough. Here's what I'll say about Ohio State. I got home and plenty of time to watch that. The paratroopers were like, we'll get you back. We'll land here shortly.
Did you specifically ask them about that?
No. Are you kidding me?
Am I going to make it home for Buckeye kickoff?
Excuse me, fellas. You guys are doing your calculations, and you got Bucks kick at 3:30. Am I going to be?
I need you to land the plane now, sir.
They probably would have been like, I'll tell you what. Why don't we'll see if your parachute works. We're going to throw you out right now. You can go watch the game. No, I did not say that, but I did get home plenty of time to watch Ohio State, and okay, it wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. The
defense was pretty great.
Boom, stop. Okay, just stop. I don't want your Homer BS today with this. Their offense, their defense was great. It is Indiana. Indiana doesn't bring much. Not much was expected out of Indiana. Now, again, I'm also somebody who usually, like the whole C.J. Stroud thing, I remember saying, we got to give him. But there's something, I was thinking about this entirely watching that game, and I couldn't get it out of my head. When C.J. Stroud, in the build-up for C.J. Stroud, and it was only C.J. Stroud's job, you heard a lot of glowing things about C.J. Stroud from Ryan Day. And now that we know Ryan Day, or now that we've heard from Ryan Day, and certainly heard from him in this situation with McCord and Brown, you may have taken what he said about C.J. Stroud with, well, he has to say that he's the head coach, he's building his confidence. Part of that was true. But you knew that C.J. Stroud was special because, well, Ryan Day had no problem telling you that. And he's like, you guys, if the fans are going to base it off one game or the media is going to get, this kid's going to be just fine. He's going to, every freshman, every new quarterback to a scheme and in Division I college football, it's like making that jump from college to the pros. The speed and everything, you got to get that down. And then C.J. Stroud, what happened? Went on to have a great year, and then the following year, another great year, and top 5 pick, and now he's going to be quarterbacking the Houston Texans. My issue is you haven't really heard that from Ryan Day about either one of those quarterbacks. And I remember saying this too this past week. keep in mind they lost some guys to the NFL on the O-line. And there was some shuffling. And I thought the O-line, quite honestly, played like crap. Like it was not good. I remember having Landis on Friday, and I remember saying to you on Saturday, like, oh, they're just going to run. Because Indiana's not supposed to be very good. I know that they have scholarship players too, and they have great facilities, and they have athletes.
They're not the worst Big Ten team.
No, but they're certainly not in the conversation for even upper half.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm just warning you right now. Yeah, this is where, Bohm, I know, hopefully the offense is going to get much better. I think it will. But love it or hate it, fair or unfair, what this is now all about with Ohio State is, are you going to be competing for a national championship? Now, can we make the assertion, can we make the decision after one game? Of course not. But I think you're lying to yourself, even as the most homeristic Buckeye fans in the country might be. Looking at you. If you really
giving me the Adam Gase size there, Chico.
Yeah, if you think that this is not going to be, I don't know how this is going to play out. Travion Henderson's a stud. Okay, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, studs. Cade Stover, stud. But here's the thing. The guys that get it all started up front and the quarterback, if they're not matching that or on that same level. Now, again, be fair. It's only one game. But with C.J. Stroud, Ryan Day never shied away from telling you how great he was going to be. And now we know that wasn't just Ryan Day speak or coach speak. That was Ryan Day telling it like it is. Just like he told you like it is 2 weeks ago when he's like, neither one of these guys is really taking the bull by the horns. None of them's blowing it out of the water. I mean, Kyle McCord hanging onto the ball too long. That's going to happen. When does that usually happen? When you don't have a whole lot of confidence, when you're again, what was lacking last year, one of the main ingredients people said, and of course they proved everybody wrong against Georgia when they went out and played the game of their lives, but against Michigan, after that game, all you heard was, man, they just don't have that tenacity. They don't have that same physicality. They don't have that. And I'm only going off of one game, and I know that was primarily said last year on the defense, but you can say that now about the offense. Because up front, I thought the O-line did not play well. I thought you can say consequently, but there were some throws to be had and throws that weren't made. McCord and Brown, the running game never gets on track. I mean, this isn't Michigan they're playing. This isn't Penn State they're playing. You should be able to run the ball.
Yeah, that was very frustrating to see Travion getting stuffed before even making it to the line of scrimmage so constantly. And then you see linemen who didn't even block anyone. There were a few times where Simmons just he looked like a deer in headlights, like looking for someone to lay a hand on. That being said, I also wonder if Ryan Day was playing it extra close to the vest because this is an evolving college football landscape, Chico, where the transfer portal, it's just becoming more, as you talked about earlier in the show, it's becoming more and more prevalent and players are becoming more and more prone to transferring. But that's not what I want to talk about the most right now, because what I do want to say is, even though I agree with you, I feel less confident coming out of this game about Kyle McCord than I did C.J. Stroud. And that's not a bold statement in any way whatsoever. However, I feel more confident about Kyle McCord after week one as opposed to leading into it, because I saw enough to feel like, okay, this guy can make some of the big-time throws. And some of them, I feel like he kind of had a tough break on. Like, for example, his first deep ball to Julian Fleming, right through his hands. The Carnell Tate pass where he clearly was targeted. That was crowned to the just blatant targeting to me, Chico. And I think that was a beautiful ball. But there were also some ones that he did complete, like the one to Stover. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't take a sack. He did a good job of avoiding pressure despite some of that O-line performance.
Paul, here's the thing, though. Okay, again, we're going to get back to the brass tacks, and this is like, you can't have it both ways and say like, hey, they could they should be playing for a national championship. They should be on that discussion. You don't get the benefit of the doubt of saying that and then also saying, well, he made some good throws. I would hope so. I mean, he's a highly touted quarterback at Ohio State. He better be able to make a throw, have it come out of his hand, and go, wow, he spun that pretty well. I mean, yeah, he better. Now it's about and this is where I'm concerned when Ryan Day is he going to evolve? Now there's only one way to get to that point, and time. So we don't know. It's a crystal ball right now. We don't know. But the fact that here's the other thing. I think many Buckeye fans felt like or wanted to feel like after game one, I thought it was too much of a reach to say you should have it sewn up on who it's going to be at quarterback. But you would like to see somebody, it's kind of like the entire race. Like, I mean, are you really confident in one guy? I'm not.
The way that he played McCord versus Devin Brown, though, to me just strikes me as it was really going to be McCord all along.
Right, but I'm just saying, did McCord do anything to No, he doesn't.
Well, we don't know that for certain. We're not behind closed doors, Chico. We don't see all the stuff that's going on in practice.
Just stop. Yeah, you don't need to. Ryan Day does, and Ryan Day said it 2 weeks ago. This was not Ryan Day. Just stop.
I also put some of this on Ryan Day. I was he looked hesitant in calling that offense.
He might be, and that's where you don't know. Okay, that's behind the scenes. If I don't want to hear that behind the scenes Kyle McCord may have played really well and we just didn't have a chance to see it. I know what my eyeballs see. I know what other eyeballs are seeing that know much more than I do, and nobody was overwhelmed and just blown away by his play. As far as the play calling goes, one thing we don't know, and Ryan Day did address this in the week leading up to the game, really in the offseason, but Brian Hartline was promoted offensive coordinator. And, this guy's one of the best, if not the best recruiter in the country. And I don't know how much Brian Hartline how much play calling is he getting versus Ryan Day. Ryan Day admitted not long ago that, it'll probably take a little bit of time before he really puts his fingerprint on it. And so that leads me to believe that, it's Ryan Day with collaboration from Brian Hartline. Yeah, it looked clunky. It was clunky. You're a great program. You're a great defense. You've got a lot of talent, so you obviously won handily. But again, you don't get the opportunity. This is what it is at Ohio State. This is a guy, fair, unfair, and I was so amazed at people in the offseason that were like, well, he lost to Michigan again, he's got to go. Okay, that's stupid. But to say that the seat, as not just against Michigan, but week by week, okay, how does this play out? It's a big deal. It's a huge deal because this is not about, let's win the Big Ten. Hey, win the Big. I mean, you want to win the Big Ten, but these are the times now. It's championship or bust. When your recruiting budget is what it is, when your facility is what it is, when your training facility is what it is, it's everything or nothing. Love it or hate it, that's what it is. Now, again, it's one game. We all need to calm down. But my biggest takeaway was I remember the C.J. Stroud first game, and I remember Saturday's game. And I just remember not really having a whole lot of concern with C.J. Stroud, and a lot of it was because of what Ryan Day said. And let me reiterate, most of the time when that happens or you hear that sort of thing, you say, that's the coach. Now, Ryan Day's we know, his personality, he knew that C.J. Stroud was special. I don't think he knows, and we certainly don't know that Kyle McCord is special. And you can say, okay, well, it's not his fault. He's not going to be C.J. Stroud. He's not going to be Justin Fields. Yeah, and it might not be, and that's not his fault, but that also might mean the difference between you competing for a national championship and not competing for a national championship. And that, love it or hate it, that's reality right now in college football as one of the best programs in the country.
And I think as far as it goes for Ohio State fandom, weeks 2 and 3 are going to be pretty pivotal because obviously Indiana was not that great of an opponent. But you're playing Youngstown State next week, which I'm sorry, Jim Tressel, I love you, but I'm hoping that like Ohio State should be pulverizing them. And if we see the same sort of...
Wait a minute. You just contradicted yourself. You're like, hey, I know Indiana. What did you say?
This is an even lesser opponent than Indiana.
Right.
Youngstown State.
So what are you saying? Like,
I'm saying
what are we going to know about? I mean,
I'm saying that if Ohio State fans are going to freak out if they don't dominate these next 2 weeks. Like, you know what's going to happen.
Well,
if Kyle McCord is mediocre stat line, Ohio State fans are going to be up in arms.
Yeah, you can say that about it. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's fair.
And then you've got Notre Dame, and it's people are. I mean, if it does kind of like plateau, and we see the same sort of performances out of McCord and Devin Brown, there's going to be a lot of concern going into Week 4 against Notre Dame.
I mean, I'll leave with this, and then we'll go to fair or foul. And again, Terry Pluto, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com, coming your way at 12:30. I did not expect, if you would have told me going into that game, conservative or not, I'm not really buying that. I mean, you're not. I mean, yeah, there's something we know every year though. There's stuff that they put in against Michigan. You're not playing it close to the vest against Indiana. You're trying to put them in any situation. Bottom line is, you can talk about all the fancy dancy glitz and whatever. If the guys up front play like crap, more often than not, it's going to show. And your offensive line, that I hope is something that does get better. And that's like against Youngstown State. You want to talk about stat lines? If they're not dominating the line of scrimmage next week, you're going to talk radio in Columbus, Ohio will be livid. Livid. What did Bobby and Schlegel say on the Buckeye show?
Yeah, so as far as the offensive line you're asking?
Just in general, but I mean, what did they make of the offensive line? What did they make of McCord and all that?
Well, they were talking about whether the silver bullet defense might be back, first of all. That was definitely the biggest positive, feeling really good about the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, offensively, I think that they are, I guess, as unconvinced that this is a national championship team as you are. You know, there's still a lot that needs to be seen.
Yeah.
After only 1 week. There's only so much that you can go off of, and maybe there will be enough teaching tape to get these guys right by Week 4. But yeah, Chico, I definitely think that there's a lot of unanswered questions surrounding this program this season. And they were saying, because they were asked in the Ask the Show segment, if they should consider benching Simmons at left tackle. And they said, no, you got to ride it out with him. You got to give him another shot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's reminiscent to me of like how people were saying you should bench C.J. Stroud and start Quinn Ewers. You know, like fans freak out so quickly down in Columbus. It's kind of wild.
Well, okay, but the other thing, and I didn't have a chance to listen to it or watch them yet. I'm going to go back, and that's on my list of things to do this week, is to hear what...
Remind me to tell you about the technical difficulties we had. It turned out to be a phenomenal show, though. They're spectacular as always with their Ohio State insight.
Yeah. I was going to say something. You totally got me off track now.
I apologize.
That's all right. As far as the offensive line's concerned, like this is not. Yeah, I'm not calling for anybody to be benched or anything, but you just, I don't want to say it's simple, but were you physical? Were you tough in the trenches, or did you get handled? And look, that's something that was talked about last year at times, more so on the defensive side of the ball, but somewhat on the offensive. Short yardage situations last year was talked about, and now you've got a lot of new faces. DeJuan Jones, Luke Whippler are playing, or practice. Well, not today, but tomorrow I'll be practicing in Berea. You got guys, Paris Johnson. These guys are no longer there. So, yeah, there is still guys that have to feel their way, but I get worried when they just physically they don't seem to win the battle up front. But I don't know. We shall see. All right, we'll take a break again. Terry Pluto coming your way at 12:30. We got Fair or Foul coming your way with Mr. Bombastic. And, of course, if you want to chime in, do so 216-626-7901. Stream us live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube, The Chico Bormann Show, and wherever you get your podcasts. Back with more right here on the Big Ten, the Big Ten, the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show on this Tuesday afternoon. Well, close enough. We're approaching noon. It is game week. Browns, Bengals, Sunday. If you are just tuning in, crawling out from under a rock, it's all right. It's been a long weekend, so you're allowed to do that. Sunday, this right here, not just this studio, this entire Burke Lakefront Airport is the place to be Sunday, 10 a.m. to noon, as we're going to have one hell of a tailgate party. That's all I can tell you. We're going to be doing a show live from 10 a.m. to noon. I'll be here. Nick Padone will be here. Josh Cribbs will be here. Hanford Dixon will be here. Boom, I think you might even be here if you can wake up in time. It's going to be incredible. We're going to have food. We're going to have music. We're going to have field goal kicking. A real field goal. Like an actual, I believe like a regulation or close to a regulation field goal. Little stand thing's going to be coming in. The crossbar and whatnot. You can win prizes, I think. If not, if we don't have any prizes, then Bone will sign your shirt or something. I don't know. But it's going to be a great time.
I'll bring guitar picks.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time coming up this Sunday. 10 a.m. to noon. Football is here. NFL season is here. Thursday gets underway. The Lions and the Chiefs. But your Brownies, how is this all going to play out? Deshaun Watson, a full off season. You added to the defensive line. Joe Woods is out. Jim Schwartz is in. How much of a difference is it going to make? And will this team, with all the talent, be able to win in not only a very tough AFC, but specifically AFC North? We don't have to talk about it anymore because now we're finally getting there. Also, we're getting to fair or foul. Mr. Bombastic. I don't like saying that. You need to change your Twitter handle, Boom. I don't like Mr. Bombastic.
Sorry, Chico. You could just call me Michael if you want.
Yes, Michael. Let's hear what you have for fair or foul today, Michael.
You can refer to me as Wheels, my second grade nickname.
Yeah.
Bernie calls me Bones.
I can... Boner.
Yeah, you could go with the Carpenter route.
Bernie calls you Bones?
which was a nickname that some people called me in high school, too, that was kind of funny.
So Bernie calls you Bones. Carpenter refers to you as Boner. The boss calls you Bame. He's like, where's Bame? I'm like, who's Bame? All right, let's do fair.
Usually it's Bomb. I'm not, Bame, you need like an E in there.
I've always wondered why people struggle with it's only 4 letters. It's BOHM.
Also, there's a scientific unit. OHM. It's like the same thing.
And it's not even I remember at the other play, everybody be like, well, so who's running the board for? Is it Bomb? I'm like, Boom.
I feel like I've been called Bomb more than Boom by people who don't know.
Bomb, Bame. Bombastic it is, I guess. Go ahead.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I want to start things off with Kyler Murray because there was some talks that were later disproven that Kyler was basically, the Cardinals were considering sitting him for the season because he wouldn't be like fully healthy, and then there were concerns about like his status and whatnot.
And they're trying to tank so they can get Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Well, it's since been revealed that Kyler Murray was actually elected one of the captains for the team. He has reportedly, quote, hit it off with new head coach Jonathan Gannon. Now, obviously, former Browns quarterback Josh Dobbs slated to get that start while Kyler is hurt and recovering from injury. But fair or foul, Chico, you buying into the hype of Kyler Murray resurgence this year when returning?
Man, I wish I could, and I can technically, and I know Bohm gets really ecstatic about the opportunity. If I could swear here, I would say blank no, I'm not buying into the hype. This is completely foul. Anybody, even if you're in Arizona, nobody's buying. Jonathan Gannon's not even buying into it. Like, they hit it off. Yeah, wait till you get to it's in season. Kyler Murray is back, and he once again doesn't know what the protections are, and once again hasn't broken down any film because he's playing video games and doesn't really know what the game plan is, and he's yelling at his offensive linemen who then are yelling at him. Then tell me how well they're getting along. Yeah, they made him captain. I find that really hard. To me, that sounds like one of those, like, okay, we have to. we have to do this just to make it sound like everything is okay when it's anything but okay. Because even his teammates, former teammates that are now gone from Arizona would say, like, he drove them nuts. Not knowing protections, like, he'd yell at an offensive lineman for, like, say, missing a protection or missing a blitz. And the offensive lineman would then have to tell Kyler Murray, like, dude, do you know what the protection is here? Because that protection calls for you to go right and not left. If you go left, you're on your own. So, yeah, I'm not buying into Kyler Murray, much like I'm not buying into Dave being able to solve these issues that we're having today. Go ahead.
All right.
What's up, Dave?
Totally. I was going to say totally made me lose my train of thought, but no, I remember what I wanted to say now. Okay, so I want to talk to you about Clemson. Firstly, the interesting thing is, right, DJ Uiagalelei transfers to Oregon State, OSU, and he has a dominant week one, right? And then you've got one of the top-ranked quarterbacks in Cade Klubnik, coming in and quarterbacking, and Clemson just absolutely crapped the bed. It was kind of an embarrassing performance if I'm a Clemson fan. Fair or foul, Chico, Dabo is on a hot seat than Ryan Day.
Fair. I'm going to call him even. I mean, and that's not to say Clemson is as good or not. I'm just saying as far as because in terms of the pressure to win, yeah, Ryan Day is a little bit more so because it is Ohio State and they're a little more. But Clemson, I mean, they're pretty fanatical as well. Here's what I think happened with Dabo Swinney, and I don't even know if this is, a completely accurate assessment. But, like, we talk about windows closing. You'll hear that in, like, professional sports. Like, hey, the Browns had a 2-year window when the Steelers were down. They should have been able to capitalize. Or, you got a guy in a rookie contract. Very rarely with the top college programs do you talk about windows closing because, well, the dominant ones are the dominant ones. But doesn't it feel like Clemson's window is closed? Like, they're not horrible, but they had their cup of coffee on the big stage. And, I mean, seriously, like, you talk about the talent that's now in the NFL. I mean, Trevor Lawrence and, I mean, the guys up front that they had, who's the Mike Williams was a Clemson guy, right? T. Higgins?
They were, like, arguably wide receiver U there for a run.
Was T. Higgins Clemson?
Yeah, T. Higgins. You also had Sammy Watkins, who was really dominant. And there were a few more. DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and then you go to the defensive side of the ball. They had that Isaiah Simmons, who hasn't quite panned out in the NFL.
Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, I mean, their window, they made good on it. I mean, they certainly they dominated when they had the chance, but it just feels like that's why it is so hard. And I can't emphasize this enough, and it's not making an excuse for Ryan Day and Ohio State because I just got done saying, well, love it or hate it, this is what it is. The money dictates it. But this is why, like Nick Saban says it's so hard because it's not getting there isn't hard, it's staying there. Can Deion and Colorado, like, they got a big win. Nobody's taking that away from them. But when you're taking a victory lap after one game, I mean, wow. I mean, it was a big one. Don't get me wrong. But this is why Nick Saban's always like, that's rat poison that you reason. What if these guys start believing that, I can do whatever the hell I want. Yeah, we are. Now, you want him to be confident, but do you want him to be over, like, isn't it logical to think that Colorado's going to have a huge letdown next week? Maybe they still win, but a letdown nonetheless.
It feels like it's brewing, Chico. They have to be feeling very confident right now.
And I'm not rooting against Deion. I actually like Deion. I mean, I think he's good but that was a little bit crazy, him after the game, like what he's saying. Like, it's a W, a big one. But
a statement, no doubt about it. But you're going to have to do it quite a few more times if you really want to make a statement.
My house. This is the house that I built.
We ain't coming. We here.
We ain't coming. Now.
I did like the pregame speech, though. That was very inspiring.
I mean, that's Deion. That's why Deion is...
Give me my theme music.
Yeah. I should...
I love that.
I'm coming in with that now. Beginning of every show. Give me my theme music. You don't have any. All right. I tried. Give me my theme music.
Just go to the pre-show music.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah, quite a catchy tune. All right. Well, you mentioned Colorado. I did actually. It's funny. I was looking through my list of fair or foul questions, and I had the Colorado one up. So why don't we just start there?
Okay.
I think it's an interesting approach by Dion, and it feels like he's definitely taken on this task with a sort of unique handling of certain things, including the fact that Colorado does not have captains this year. Now, instead, he puts L's on their left shoulder if they're a leader, and he puts D on their left shoulder if they're dogs. Fair or foul, Chico, you think this is something that could catch on, or this is going to remain a Colorado exclusive, changing it up from captains?
I'm going to say it's a Colorado exclusive. And, you know, look, little things, I'm not trying to find. The one thing I didn't like, well, after him singling out Ed Werder for some reason in the postgame. But the other thing, and I said this even before the season, I not saying anything about how they would do or not do, but I said I didn't like the idea that he put everybody, all those kids on blast in front of on national television. The kids that are, many of them no longer there. And you know what? Hey, it worked because you brought in talent and you won a big game. But I didn't like that approach. I understand what he's doing, and in a day and age, and this is where it's very easy to talk out of both sides of my mouth. In a day and age where you say, I'm tired of these guys being coddled. They're told since they're 12 years old how great they are, and their AAU circuit, and their high school, and they're this, they're that. And Dion's basically like, nah, you can't play for me. So is there a compromise somewhere in there? I'm going to say that it's not going to catch on. Foul. It's going to be a fair thing with Dion and Colorado moving forward. But you see things like the turnover chain, and you know it's something that some coaches do. If it motivates your kids, then go ahead and do it.
All right, now the last thing I want to ask you about Colorado, because it was obviously a couple of standout performances, but one of them, most notably to me, was Travis Hunter, who did it on both sides of the ball, Chico, 110 snaps.
In 110-degree heat.
Yeah.
They said the field was like 110 degrees.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think that's impressive as hell, and it was an amazing performance. Like, I even saw video of fans talking smack to him before the game, and then he got an INT right in their face while also putting on a dominant receiver performance.
Oh, no. Please don't tell me you're going to say, like, Chris Gamble.
No, I was going to ask you, fair or foul, do you think this is sustainable for him for this season?
If it is, he's winning the Heisman.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's like Shohei Ohtani stuff at this point. Like, you don't see it today.
Like, you see guys like Gamble. Okay, Gamble was primarily, I mean, he was a great defensive back. You could use him on, obviously, on offense, and they did. I mean, that Miami game, he must have been asleep for 3 days after that, because, I mean, as much as he played at that level, that intensity, you know, people will say, well, Charles Woodson was a two-way player. He was. I mean, he played a little bit on offense. This kid starred on both sides. He had 11 catches. He had 11 catches for 119 yards and the pick. And like, he's the, very rarely do you see guys, I can't remember that's the best player on the field on both sides of the ball. Again, you mentioned Shohei. I think that's a good analogy. It's like Little League, where, you know, oh, wow, the pitcher also hits third and plays shortstop when he doesn't pitch, and hits home runs and strikes guys out. And, okay, when you get to this level of college football, D1 college football, you pick a side. I'm not saying that guys can't play both ways, but this guy dominated on both sides. If he continues to do it, Heisman, wow. Is it reckless or is it smart? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that. Only time will tell. I'll tell you what, though. Colorado's storylines. I mean, I might not like the way he, you know, went about the whole Ed Werder thing and all that, but Colorado is. I want to sign up to see them. Can we flex them in? Is there a college flex schedule where we can get the All Colorado channel? Because I want to see him now, and I want to see him because of his son, because of Dion, because of just this Hunter kid. They've got a lot of exciting players over there.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like as far as college football goes, that's must-see TV. And I certainly want to see what happens with them week 2. And down the line, I'm sure that they're going to have some unbelievable matchups. Now, I don't know if they're the team I feel the need to watch the most compared to or outside of Ohio State, because Caleb Williams is right up there too. Watching him, I mean, he made some plays this weekend, just crazy. But I digress. Okay, so Chico, what I wanted to ask you next, I'm assuming that maybe you saw some of the rumors surrounding Chris Jones, defensive lineman for the Chiefs. It was kind of sparked by his former teammate and current Brown, Juan Thornhill, tweeting out at him, basically checking in on him, touching base. Then Zadarius Smith tweeted out the eyeball emoji, which always gets everyone in a tizzy. And, oh my God, it's happening, shenanigans, everybody freak out. No, but fair or foul, Chico, because the Browns have obviously made an enormous amount of cap room, the most in the NFL by a significant margin. Fair or foul, you buying into this buzz surrounding the Browns linking up with Chris Jones?
Okay, the right answer here is foul, but it comes with an asterisk, and the asterisk is this. We're talking about windows, we're talking about all in. This is a regime that's all in. Now, I don't know what Chris Jones is seeking. I know Nick Bosa is looking for like $35 million. I know Jones is, a D tackle, and I don't think 35 is it, but he wants paid. I mean, fair in that with all the money moved, your thoughts are gonna go that route. But let's be realistic. Can you have Myles Garrett making what he's making, Deshaun making what he's making in the coming year? I think you moved that money in anticipation of being able to pay the guys you have now, not for bringing in another huge contract. I understand why people are going to go that route, but I'll go foul. And again, because of social media and eyeball emojis, we can be quickly persuaded.
All right, Chico, I want to transition back to college football because I want to ask you about there was a rule change over the summer heading into this season where they sort of adopted an NFL policy as far as the clock, right? So the clock will run after first down no matter what, even if you go out of bounds or whatnot. So I think in week 1 with Ohio State, I noticed it. It felt like there were a lot less plays. Obviously, Indiana trying to sort of hog the time of possession a little bit as well. But fair or foul, are you liking this new clock rule? I know Bobby and Schlegs, they made it a point to talk about it because they weren't a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Does it bug you at all?
Yeah, it does a little bit. I mean, again, this might be one of those things like you remember with baseball where like, and then all of a sudden you say, well, I like it, but I didn't get that feeling the first weekend. So we'll see. I don't think I'm going to like it, but again, I also didn't think I was going to like all the baseball changes, and for the most part, I have been very pleasantly surprised. So we'll see.
All right, Chico. To me, it doesn't feel comparable to the baseball pitch clock. It feels like it's more prohibitive than sort of.
No, I'm just saying in terms of my reaction to it.
Yeah, sure.
Like I don't know how I feel. I don't like it, but I don't know if I'm gonna be.
And I think that was a fair comparison because it was a policy change surrounding shortening up the game. I just think that with baseball, I do like that, but with football, I didn't need it so much because as long as they're actually playing, it's all good pretty much.
Yeah, you're fine as long as the silver bullets are out there and their helmets are glistening in the sun. Boom, you are okay. You are going to be A-okay for the day.
It's like the air show when I was there yesterday after Reflog. As long as there were jets flying through the skies, I wasn't leaving, baby.
Yeah, it was. I forgot you guys were up here again yesterday for the.
Yeah, I saw some different stuff that I didn't see on Saturday, so that was cool.
They did. They all did an incredible job.
Had some chicken on a stick. Little overpriced, but it was delicious.
See, let me go back to that real quick. Fair or foul, the real reason Bohm stuck around is because he felt obligated and want to make sure that we made safe return, or foul. That's not the reason. The number one reason Bohm stuck around during our entire experience with the Golden Knights was because he had food. And I think you said as much. I'm like, boom.
I did go get food, but I finished it and I still stayed.
I thought it was great, though, because you said that right out of the gate. As soon as I said, like, damn, Bohm, I didn't know if you were going to stick around. You're like, well, I did get some food. I'm like, oh, okay. That explains it. Immediately, he doesn't say, well, I wanted to make sure you guys made it back. Oh, well, I wanted to see how it went. Wanted to see how the video looked. Well, I got some food. Oh, okay.
I mean, it didn't take me like 2 hours to go get a couple hot dogs, but no, I also wanted to film you guys getting off the plane. I wanted the distance shot. I don't know if Padone used it, but just in case for the team.
For the team. You are a team guy, Bohm. You are a team guy.
I try in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I show up, just not always on time.
We're working on that. We're working. You're a work in progress like we all are.
Chico, the other thing that's true. The other thing that I want to ask you about, because obviously another big upset as LSU lost handedly to Florida State and the Seminoles, who, by the way, I mean, Seminoles may be in consideration to be a serious contender this season. It feels like some people saying they might be back.
Guess who also had a lot of dipping into the transfer portal?
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's a great point, Chico. But also, well, I guess as far as the question goes, because there were some upsets this season, or this weekend, I want to ask you, the fair or foul, LSU is the most disappointing upset, or the biggest upset of this year so far, of week one?
Wow, that is a great question. Because, I mean, I think it's easy to say Clemson, but Clemson, you expected them.
Not the same expectations, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were, what are they ranked? Like, Clemson, like 9th?
I think they were 8th.
8th okay.
Maybe they were 9, because Florida State might have been 8.
Yeah, I think LSU Florida State was like 8-6 or 8-5.
We were talking about Jaden Daniels, LSU quarterback, though, is a Heisman contender heading into that
I would like to know, because I agreed with, was it Carpenter that said LSU maybe overtakes Alabama?
Yeah.
And I kind of liked that when he said it, but this is where, speaking of coaches that run their mouths before they actually do anything, I am so excited to be here in Baton Rouge. You folks have been so great to me and my family. You're not from the South, Brian Kelly. You don't have that accent. And they don't mind you talking like that, like you are from the South, as long as you win. But when you fake an accent and say, my family, and then you lose, no. Not a good combination there for Brian Kelly. So,
sidebar, I just over the weekend I saw one of the funniest AI generated threads. Allen Iverson generated up
yes.
this. They said Brian Kelly running out of the total dress like whatever the LSU women's basketball coach is. She always has these really flashy outfits.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of photos of an Allen Iverson generated Brian Kelly being all fired up, wearing these outrageous outfits.
It's not a good day it's one game, but that was not all that honeymoon is definitely over, at least in terms of for the time being, because that second half Florida State dominated them. That wasn't like a fluke. They dominated them in the second half of that football game.
And that concludes this edition of Fair or Foul, Chico.
That does indeed conclude this edition of Fair or Foul, Bohm. And coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk to Terry Pluto, Cleveland Plain Dealer, and Cleveland.com. I want to get back into this with the Browns, and I want to specifically look, there is so much to look forward to as far as Sunday and as far as this season. And, one of the things we talk about Deshaun Watson. We haven't seen anything from Nick Chubb, which is fine. He's one of those guys, kind of like Denzel Ward, that you just assumed, and Myles Garrett, they're not going to see any time, let alone play him against the threes like Ward did and then got hurt, but that's for another thing. Anyway, what is the running game going to look like? There are some that, it is kind of a different, it's that the zone scheme, but now you're looking at, and not that it wasn't the zone scheme before, but it's kind of a different variation of it, and you're going to be seeing a lot of empty formations. We don't know yet how, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but how does Nick Chubb fit into I hope we don't complicate it so much that like, oh, wait, we forget that, that guy's back there as well. And I know that Kevin Stefanski gets pass happy. I know that Kevin Stefanski is very creative offensively, and I want that to continue. But we also, and that's something that we really, because it's preseason and because we haven't seen him, nobody's really seen what the running game looks like in this offense. And that more than anything else might be something that I'm more intrigued with. Is what does the running game look like? What does Nick Chubb look like? Where is he lined up? I don't know. So that's one big thing, and then the other thing, am I the only one that's really concerned about Denzel Ward for Sunday? Is it too early? Put it this way: is it too early in the week for me to be this concerned about Denzel Ward?
I don't think so, Chico. I think it's totally justified at this point. And I feel like I've noticed Kevin Stefanski coming under more and more fire over it. Just the fact that he hasn't returned. And you said they weren't practicing today, but he's still not back yet. Like this was a mistake that he made by playing him out there against third teamers.
So just to be clear, because I was watching that game and then I didn't even realize like he was in there until it happened. And then I was like, wait a minute, Denzel. And so it was like, this is not hindsight, because I've had a lot of people say that to me. I tweeted out yesterday that I'm concerned about Denzel Ward, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, hindsight's 20/20. No, that's not what this is. Because, again, I know that they need their reps. I absolutely get it. Joint practices, that's when you go against the ones, and you better go hard, and that's because you don't have many opportunities to get those types of reps. But why would you be so careful with like a handful of guys, Denzel Ward being one of them, and justifiably so? Why would you be so careful with him the entire preseason, and then the final game, he's out there against it? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, again, if he goes out and he plays well on Sunday and he balls out and, okay, no harm, no foul, nothing, we're fine. But if he's not ready for Sunday, like, boom, that could be the difference in the game. This is a guy that has had huge success, a lot of success against Joe Burrow, and
Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow, but Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, I mean, they've got a lot of weapons there. And okay, yes, this is not. I know some people are saying to themselves, "Well, but it's good. You're deep. You have Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson." True, but the whole idea is you want those guys together, if possible, playing this. And again, it's game 1 of 17, but it is a divisional game, and a divisional game against the reigning, or I should say, the AFC went to the AFC Championship game last year. For 2 years now, and this is a team on the rise. This is a team with a great quarterback, weapons. Denzel Ward is, and look, if he strains his hamstring in practice this week or gets a concussion in practice this week, that's understandable. I mean, this is not me trying to say like, well, you just don't play him at all, but there in the beginning of the game, fine. I mean, he gets that concussion in the beginning of the game against Kansas City. Football's football. But wasn't that in the third quarter or second quarter? I thought it was in the third quarter.
It may have been. It was late. It was when you should not be playing a starter in the final.
Just very, very odd. Very, very odd. And like I said, he is just way too important to have him out there. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to touch on some other Browns issues getting ready for Sunday, tell you more about our big action coming up here at Burke Lakefront Airport on Sunday, and coming up at the bottom of the hour at 12:30, we're going to talk to Terry Pluto with Cleveland.com and the Cleveland Plain Dealer. A lot to get to with him. Chico Bormann Show, more to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back. Chico Bormann Show here. Final 40 minutes or so. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to talk to Terry Pluto, Cleveland.com, and the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Yep, it's finally here. It is game week. Browns and Bengals. No easing into the schedule here. Right out of the gate, you get Joe Burrow and company. The following week, Monday Night Football, Browns against the Steelers. Then you've got the Titans and Mike Vrabel, and then the Baltimore Ravens. So right out of the gate, Browns going to have some really, really tall tasks on their hand. We are going to help you get started for game day on Sunday, just after 1 is kickoff, but beginning at 10 a.m. And I don't think anybody would have a problem if you wanted to show up even earlier than that. But we are going to be on the air at 10, from 10 a.m. to noon. Myself, Nick Padone, Josh Cribbs. I think Maria's going to be there as well. Hanford Dixon. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun on Sundays here at Burke Lakefront Airport, 10 a.m. to noon. We will be getting you set for the game. We'll be getting predictions. We'll be going around the AFC North. I mean, it'll be a show, but we're going to have so much fun and festivities and drinking and eating and music, and it's going to be phenomenal. Speaking of music, boom, Jimmy Buffett. Were you a Buffett fan? I think everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody is, but were you a Buffett? Maybe not.
I have an immense appreciation for Jimmy Buffett, not just as a musician, but also I was a music enterprise minor at Ohio State. And my professor, the first day of class, I'll never forget, used Jimmy Buffett as like the example in his story for like how he approached his marketing aspect, how he was able to do like the Margaritaville stuff and all of that. So I have much admiration for the mind of Jimmy Buffett, and it was sad to see him go.
You know what's funny? I heard an interview. It wasn't that long ago. Jimmy Buffett was very good friends with Warren
Buffett.
Yeah, are they related?
Really? I don't think so.
I never thought about that, but
I used to mix them up before, like when I was younger.
Like they became very good friends, but like, and I don't know. Now I'm thinking, are they related? Well, somebody's gonna be like, yeah, that's his dad, you idiot. But no, it's not. But like, you're right in terms of how he was able to market. Like, Warren would talk about that. Like, people don't realize. They think he's just, this obviously is great music star and icon, and I mean everybody. Those concerts. I've been to, I think 3 of them in my lifetime, 2 in Pittsburgh, 1 in Columbus. Or no, 1 in Pittsburgh, 1 in Cleveland, 1 in Columbus. And, like, it's just, I mean, it's not fair to say it's like a cult following, but I think maybe it is. I mean, because
he does have a huge following.
I wasn't around for, like, Grateful Dead, and I didn't, like, Fish was a big thing when I was in college.
Yeah.
And, like.
Still are.
There was a dude. Are they still big?
Oh, yeah. They still they draw all right.
There was a guy in my fraternity who, and there were a few guys, and there were many, many people on campus. Like but there was one dude.
Has he been to like 146 Fish shows or something?
Yeah, he's been to a ton that he remembers. But like
that he remembers.
We wouldn't see him for like 3 weeks. And it'd be, let's say like spring quarter, right? And then like 3 weeks, a month in, he'd like come walking through the door like, Klukes! And his feet were like dirty as hell. Like he hadn't showered. Like, what are you doing? Been on the road with Fish, man. Freaking great. Like,
yeah.
For that long, I don't know if I could do it for that long. I mean, that's, wow.
I would love to tour for that long. I don't know if I could follow a band for that long.
He did.
But yeah, their fans are diehards, Chico.
But yeah, Jimmy Buffett was just, gosh. I mean, Margaritaville, I love Fins. Fins to the left, Fins to the right, and you're the only show in town. He had the Pirate Looks at 40. I remember that one. That was a kind of a slower song. Let's Get Drunk and Screw was one of his songs. That was always a crowd favorite.
I believe it.
Yeah, that was. And the other thing I remember too is because you had Cheeseburger in Paradise, whatever. So they would sell cheeseburgers at whatever venues he was at, and they were the worst cheeseburgers in the world. I mean, they were terrible. They had not, and it was just. It was a cheap ass bun. It was a horrible piece of meat, and it was like some slop of cheese thrown on there, but they could charge $11 for him and get him. Well, of course you got to eat a cheeseburger in paradise while Jimmy Buffett's singing. You're right. The marketing aspect of what he did was amazing. Amazing. Terry, when Terry joins us too, he wrote a column. I haven't had a chance to read it yet on Jimmy Buffett, and apparently he was a very big fan of his as well. So hopefully we'll be able to ask him about that as well. All right. So we've got the Browns and the Bengals coming up Sunday. We already talked about Ohio State. The Guardians got plastered. Yes, 20-6.
That was a football score.
Royce Lewis, Royce Lewis is a really, really great young. He's still young, and he's still a great prospect. He's been injured a lot for Minnesota. This dude has 3 grand slams in his last 8 games. I mean, like, if you have 3 grand, I don't even think guys have 3 grand slams or 2 grand slams in a year.
I wonder what the record is for most grand slams in a season.
3 in 8 games is insane. One of them was back-to-back.
So the record actually is currently held by a former Cleveland Indian in Travis Hafner with 6 grand slams all time, but then Don Mattingly also had 6. Ernie Banks with 5.
Mattingly, Mattingly, I do remember that. That was 87?
Yes.
87, Mattingly? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that streak.
Hafner
too.
did it in 06.
Yeah. But, man, Royce Lewis. But anyway.
Shout out Pronk.
At Pronkville. Remember Pronkville? Speaking of marketing, that was a
Yep.
pretty good marketing tool. But, yeah, the Guardians, it's funny. I think I heard some people after they went to Minnesota, or after they played Minnesota in the first game, and after they had acquired, Giolito and Moore and I forget who the third one is, and guys were saying like, all right, we're back on board, and then Giolito just got lit up.
Are you out on Giolito after that one start?
Well, I mean, there's a reason. Here's the thing. Speaking of hyped prospects, Lucas Giolito was a huge deal. And then, he came up with the White Sox. Then he was with the Angels. But, he just never materialized. But you talk about why he was just sitting there on the waiver wire. He got shelled. He was throwing batting practice. That's what that was. And you want to, you think, hey, and I don't blame the Guardians for going out and trying, because the other thing they got to keep in mind, fans have to keep in mind, is while they're waiting for some of these guys to maybe come back, a Bieber or McKenzie, these young guys that we've been talking so much about this year are piling up innings, which, they're trying to be cognizant of, whether it be Bybee, whether it be, Gavin Williams, any of those guys. So it was like, well, hey, if you can find some live arms out there. But I think some people got really, really excited about Lucas Giolito, and then didn't quite work out. All right. He has, am I seeing that right there, Bohm? Is Terry Pluto joining us from Cleveland.com and Cleveland Plain Dealer. Terry, as always, it is great to have you on the show here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Let me start with this because, and I love your, Faith in You columns and certainly your sports columns, but you wrote one on Jimmy Buffett and his passing. And my producer, Michael Bowman, and I were just talking, like, it wasn't just the music, which is incredible. Like, Jimmy Buffett and the from a marketing standpoint, and amazing career. And I know you wrote a column about him as well. You really enjoyed his music also.
Yeah, I did, Chico. And I remember Jimmy, not from the super early days like 1970, but I remember seeing him when I was living in Savannah. So it was either 77 or 78. And I think just at that point, Margaritaville had come out, but he was primarily kind of a country folk singer, maybe a little bit of the reggae starting to come into it. And he did a concert in Savannah, and it's hard to know when you look back that far if the memory was right, but my wife was there too. And we remember him just doing a solo with a guitar. And it was fascinating to listen to him tell his songs, tell his stories. And it was very, very, to me, magnetic. One of the lines he wrote is from a song, "You Can Never Go Home." Don't you? The song was "Why Do You Want to Go Home?" It begins with, "The years grow shorter, not longer. the more you've been on your own. And the longer you live, boy, the shorter the years. And to me, seeing that thing with Jimmy and looking back, it had to be, 40 some years ago. And I still recall that. So it was fun to kind of look at the lyrics and the different songs, and then also just some of the other things written. I didn't know that. He almost changed Margarita, instead of being wasted away in Margaritaville, he almost had it wasted away in Austin, Texas.
I saw that in your column.
How about that? Can you believe that?
He said, and that was where, like, you wrote, I'm looking at it right now, the inspiration came one day while he was eating tacos and having a margarita with a friend in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
All these years later, you can't imagine.
And he said something like, they ought to call this place Margaritaville. And then, on top, it shows how fate and God and things intervene in your life. So he flew back from Austin that night to Miami, and then was driving back to his home in Key West. And he said there was a big accident. There's a thing called the 7 Mile Bridge, which is on A1A, which is a long road from Miami down to Key West. And he sat there for hours, and he just kind of had Margaritaville thing. And so he just wrote this thing in a traffic jam. And he oftentimes he kind of lies and says things like, I just kicked that off in 5 to 10 minutes. Don't believe that for a second. Part of Jimmy's persona was, never make him sweat. It's all cool. Chill out. But he worked on it in traffic. You got to be pretty driven to say, I'm going to write a song while sitting in a traffic jam. And he did. And then he said that night he played it in a bar in Key West, and people started going crazy. But he was debating between wasted away in Austin, Texas, and wasting away in Margaritaville. And the Key West kind of got to him and said, "Oh, we better go with that way."
That branding worked out pretty well.
Had, Margaritaville stuff all over if it was wasting away in West Texas.
Terry Pluto is joining us here. All right, Terry, good stuff there in regards to the news on Jimmy Buffett. We get ready for the Browns now coming up this Sunday. Look, I think, and I get this in your writing as well, but I'm usually somebody that, if anything, I take heat from fans for being too pessimistic and in years where everybody wants to be. But I admit to, wow, this roster is loaded, but I also have to come to the realization, and have come to the realization, that you can have all the talent in the world, but if the little things don't become big things, and those little things become issues on game days, and you're not playing as a team, it doesn't matter how much talent's on that roster.
People still not fully grasp the fact that in the 11 games Jacoby Brissett played, they were 10th in the league in NFL in scoring.
Wow.
And I know one time I had kind of a casual conversation with Andrew Berry a while ago, several months, and he said, at minimum, if you knew that going in, you're thinking you got to be 6-5 or 7-4 instead of 4-7, because the special teams were iffy, and the defense at that point was mastering and blown coverages. So the old complementary football thing wasn't there. To your point, Chico, it does have to work together. But my goodness, they have a lot of talent. This is not, people who are way away from the situation say they have a lot of talent. There's a lot of questions about Watson, and there should be. But the defense, you've got top-notch coordinators on defense, a top-notch coordinator on special teams. And the fact that Jacoby Brissett had the Browns and the number 10 scoring offense in the NFL in those 11, said Stefanski, for all the stuff that we do second guess and whatever, clearly did a good job with him.
As far as Deshaun Watson out of the gate, much is expected of him. He knows that. Everybody knows that. That comes with the territory. Should we be, I don't want to say expecting, but maybe be cognizant of the fact that he might not get off to this great start? Like, if he doesn't go out and light it up on Sunday against Cincinnati, he hasn't the game speed and getting on the same page with Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. It's different once the season starts. Is there any concern that it might be a bit of a slow start for him and this offense?
I thought it was ill-advised at best when he came out about a week ago and said there's going to be fireworks when we play Cincinnati. No, don't say that. Because the odds are You could win that game. He just plays pretty good. The defense plays well. They don't do stupid things on special teams. You can beat the Bengals. But don't start waving the fireworks flag when you've played a grand total of 30 snaps in the preseason. It's just not likely to happen. What I'm really going to be watching, Chico, is how does he improve over the course of the season? How does the offense adapt to him? All that kind of stuff. And are the other parts of the team, the defense and the special teams, are they ready to go? Because otherwise, it's just going to be, they're going to have problems.
Same old.
This team cannot be expected to score 35 to 40 points a game. If that's the baseline for them to have a winning record, to win 10 games, I don't think it's going to happen, Chico. And then you wonder, well, why did they spend all that money on defense for?
Let me ask you on just one more on the offense here, because one thing that I was talking about this last hour and a little bit last week, what is the running game going to look like with Nick Chubb? Like, I mean, we didn't see him at all in the preseason. I'm totally fine with that. But, I mean, Deshaun Watson's comfortable more in empty backfields, and is Chubb going to be split wide? Is he going to be in the slot? Probably everywhere. But I also feel like that's a pretty important piece. Let's make sure that he's a big part of this offense. Does that make sense to you?
Better be. So, excuse me, it better be, because I remember we talked to Chud. This goes back to West Virginia, there early in training camp, and I asked him specifically, would you rather have the quarterback under center or in the shotgun? And, Chubb, first of all, Chubb is fairly honest. He said, well, it's easier when he's under center. But he said, I could run well out of anything. It's not that big a deal. I've done it. And because that's just the way Chubb is. Now, I think what he really wants is make sure he gets the ball. So
and
get
we
him
want
the ball.
Yeah.
15 to 20 times a game. I don't want him running 25 or 30. Don't kill him. And you are allowed to throw him a pass. It's in the rule book. You can do that. And you could have Elijah Moore and all those guys kind of running all over the place.
And we kind of expect to see that with Elijah Moore. And I know he's somebody that you wrote a lot about in this week's column as far as lining up all over the field.
Yes.
Let me go over to the defensive side real quick, because
But the other thing I want to mention too, I'm really surprised, and I take it as a good thing, because Stefanski's not one to gush about players. And really, from the mini camps on, he's been just raving about Elijah Moore, the attitude, his versatility, his athleticism, all this stuff. I mean, you would think they picked up a Pro Bowl caliber player the way he's talked about him.
He was great in college. He was a great player in college.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying, with the Jets, he was what? He was pretty good as a rookie and not so good in last year. Now, he may end up being that guy.
Yeah.
Andrew Berry flat out loves him. He tried to trade for him at the trading deadline last year. So I think what they wanted to make sure, the things that Stefanski's saying, which is that he's very good, in the classroom, all that stuff. So they're checking the attitude there. But he's your guy they're going to move around all over the place. My guy for the breakout is, I think DPJ is going to have a really good year. I just do. He's been getting better every year. He's a big receiver. He's got good hands. He can help them, by the way, in the return game. And he's extremely smart, and both book smart. I think he graduated with honors from Michigan, and I know he was like a merit scholar or something coming out of high school. And they talked about him immediately grasping everything, and so he seemed like a guy that Watson could connect with. But I just wanted to mention a thing on Elijah Moore. I'm not knocking it. I'm just very anxious to see this, because it's uncharacteristic. We were around some coaches. Everybody's great. Everybody's this. That's not Stefanski. With him, less is more when he's being interviewed most of the time. And this stuff, and certainly he likes to make sure he keeps a plug in that gushing part of him in his mouth. But he's done that a couple times with Moore.
Do you have any major questions or concerns with the 53, getting down to that 53, the initial 53 from Andrew Berry?
You're always talking about the back end of the roster.
Right.
I mean, I like the fact that the guys that I like that they got back on the practice squad. especially Watkins. I thought really he's a bigger receiver. If he were a draft pick, he probably would have beat out David Bell or somebody else. Of course, I used to like Bell too. Now I'm like, I don't know. And I'm also glad that they're at the point now. They used to say, well, Andrew Berry doesn't want to cut any draft picks. Now I'm getting emails saying, well, how did he draft? He's starting to cut his draft picks. Well, which do you want? If you draft all these guys, you're going to have some misses. And so if you say that, Diakembe, what's his name? The linebacker, Diakembe. I can't think of the kid's name.
Diabate, yep.
Diabate, you're right. And he jumped out immediately. I mean, I remember West Virginia looking, who is he? And Randall Hickman, was making these interceptions. This is going back when I'm sitting with Gerard Cherry in the mountains there. Go, look at these guys running all over the place. Who are they? We knew Hickman from Ohio State, but I mean, he was not drafted. And if you're saying that it isn't where you're drafted, which is a lie, but at least if you're an undrafted guy, you could beat out a 5th or 6th rounder or Anthony Schwartz or, good, do it. And if I miss on, for example, Schwartz, but I ended up with Watkins, with a DPJ, a 6th rounder, or say Watkins helps me as an undrafted free agent, or Hickman, comes into play. Great. You just want to get a bunch of talent in there that you sort through, end up being viable NFL players.
I think on the other side of the ball, on the defense, I mean, Andrew Berry, when it comes to his offseason checklist and what he needed to do to this roster, I think he went right down and he did what he needed to do, fill in the void on the D-line, made some trades. Let me ask you, though, real quick on Denzel Ward. This is a huge deal, obviously, coming right out of the gate against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has he got me? Oh, okay. Terry, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. They're saying that the concussion against Kansas City was against like 2nd or 3rd teamers. I don't know exactly when it was, but all I know is this guy, if he's not on the field Sunday with the likes of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, we're expecting Joe Burrow, it's a very, very big hole in that defense. What's the latest on Denzel Ward?
I don't know any more than you do, and they're not saying anything.
Yikes.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, by the way, Chico.
Yeah.
They just don't say anything. This is where you can't win. I really believe that if you're a coach. If you don't play your starters at all, people say, well, you never play the starters. How can you be ready for Cincinnati opening day? So then you play your starters some, and Denzel gets a concussion. Now, you can make the argument he had a history of concussion, so maybe he should have sat out like Miles, because Miles has had this weird foot thing. I think he's fine now, but They don't want to mess with that. Like Miles, Chubb, that kind of stuff. So, but I also know one of the big things from day one at training camp with these guys is no more blown coverages. And if you notice, I think in the preseason, I only saw maybe 1 or 2, and that was when the guys are way down on the depth chart in there. Now, when you talk about the defense, keep in mind the relationship that Andrew Berry struck up with Schwartz when they were together in Philadelphia a few years ago. That is critical to what's happening here, because if you even do the timeline, Joe Woods actually, first of all, Kevin Stefanski was hired before Berry. Now, they were going to be a package deal, but Stefanski came in first. I forgot what the contractual reason was with Berry, but it came down that way. So Stefanski is already working on his coaching staff. He hires Joe Woods. That's before Berry even gets here. I'm not saying Berry was anti-Joe Woods, but I'm not sure that's his first pick. Okay?
I didn't think about that. You're right.
Yeah. You always have to kind of watch these things. And then, they were patient with Joe. I was surprised they brought him back. I certainly would have let him go at the break last year, because the blown coverage thing just goes on and on. So now, meantime, when they're in Philadelphia together, Schwartz and Berry developed this relationship. I think they're simpatico on how the defense is supposed to look. So when you look at your construction of your defense, I mean, forget Berry's Schwartz's fingerprints all over it. No, his voice was behind Berry's voice, and this is who to get. And, Kevin just wants a good defense. I think he doesn't care how it's done or who's doing it, because he's got his head in his playbook and play chart, because his job is hanging on, Deshaun Watson playing well.
Okay, on that defensive side of the ball, when we look at, obviously the acquisitions they got up front on the defense as far as the middle of the line and really fortifying that. Jim Schwartz, one of the things, and I know you wrote about it, everybody was talking about it after the joint practices with Philly. And let me just say with Denzel Ward, I totally agree with you, a no-win situation. I was just surprised that he was in against like second and third teamers. Like,
well, they didn't hardly play any starters, Chico. You had to make a decision that last game. Are you going to play him or not? Because I think one of the things that I heard, I'm just to kind of correct this thing, was that Kansas at one point, Stefanski says something about, well, it depends on our starters if they're going to play their starters. What the heck is that? Either you want your starters to play that last game or you don't. What? So their starters wouldn't hit you to get a concussion, but the backups will? I don't know. Then you have to just make the decision, which and it's a good point, though, you raised. Was it wise to play him at all? See, that's the question given the concussion history. Just like they decided it wasn't you don't want Nick Chubb getting hurt in these games. You don't want Miles getting hurt in these games. They set out I think Bitonio, because, Bitonio's starting to get those Joe Thomas knees. I don't mean that, but you got to be careful. Wyatt Teller hardly plays. He gets the calves. So they held some of those guys out. I'm sorry, I got off on a train.
No, because it's fascinating. It is a great debate. I can remember the joint practices in Philly. I love those because, like, you've been covering the Browns for a long time. I've been around long enough to know, like, going to Lakeland Community College to watch them.
Yeah.
And riding your bike up, and it's 2 days, and these guys are getting all this time. Now, it is what it is. You can't complain about it. So the time allotted to get stuff done, tackling and all that, it just isn't there. So, yeah, we can nitpick. I felt like those 2 days in Philly, that's when Kevin said it at the very beginning, like those might be the two most important days of the entire camp. But then, usually they're very, very like hyper conscious of what they're doing, who's playing where. And it almost seemed like with Denzel, I don't know. I'm hearing that like maybe he wasn't supposed to be out. I don't know. I mean, at this point,
in the end, I don't know. How's that? That's a bad answer.
No. That's fine. I
mean, now here's the flip side. The old guy. So I did people haven't read it, look it up. A column with Doug Deacon a couple weeks ago. Doug a year away from.
I saw that. Yep, very good.
Yeah, but so I said, Doug, what do you remember about preseason? He goes, I won't even get into 2-a-days. He said, but we always played into the third quarter. I said, all the games? He goes, unless my memory is wrong. And he goes, I've had a few concussions. It is. He goes, but I clearly remember
6 games too.
Preseason game playing into the second half, like every game, and it was just a given.
Wow.
He said, so granted, there was a lot of playing to get in shape and that kind of stuff. But I forgot who he told me. He said, but there are a couple things that whether it was Cody Rison or one of his fellow offensive linemen, he blew an ACL in the last preseason game. And he goes, then we're going, maybe we shouldn't have been out there. He goes, it's always that.
Hindsight 2020, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get you out here with this, buddy. I always appreciate your time. Again, we're talking to Terry Pluto, of course, Cleveland.com and Cleveland Plain Dealer. Great job, longtime columnist, author of many books that many of you, I'm sure, have checked out already. Okay, it's easy to say, well, okay, the Browns, Kevin Stefanski keeps his job if ... This is why, when Jimmy Haslam, they asked Jimmy Haslam or somebody for a number, you can't, if they're 10-7, Terry, and they don't make the postseason, but this team is cleaned up, and you know what I mean, they're not 12 men coming on the field after a timeout, all that stuff.
The drama's gone.
Yeah, if they're 10-7 and they don't make the playoffs because, man, it's a tough, I can live with that, and I'm
good with that.
But I also think that if we start to see that stuff, and I don't anticipate that, which is why I think I'm optimistic, but if we start to see that stuff, then you're in big trouble. I feel like this could go right down to the very end, and that, they could win 10-11, 10, and maybe not get in. So you can't really put a number on it as far as this season.
Right. That's how you do have to base it too. I mean, the other thing, suppose you start 8-1 and end up 10-7.
Good point.
I'm not saying it's kind of doubtful, but that's the kind of stuff too that goes against you.
True.
When you look at the first 4 games, well, really, you look at the first 5 because one thing that's nice set up for them 4 are at home, so that helps. And by the time they got to develop that home field advantage. But you're playing. You open with Philly, then you go. You open with Cincinnati, then you go to Pittsburgh, then you got Tennessee, then you got Baltimore, and only the Pittsburgh games on the road. Then you got the bye week. I don't want to think about 1 and 3 at the bye week, but I just don't.
Yeah.
Whatever 3 strands of hair I have left would be gone.
You and me
because we'd be all in the one to fire everybody. But I could see them going 10-7, playing well, and missing just because it's a tough conference they're in. And I want to see. I'm going to be writing a column a little later on in the week with Bubba Bentrone. I talked to him, and I love the way he talked about cleaning up the penalties on special teams, that he can't stand it. And this comes right out of the Belichick. And then another guy was a all-star special teams guy, Brad Seeley's school.
Yep.
And when Seeley was here with Mangini and that, they had great special teams. They didn't do stupid stuff. And they did stupid stuff in the past. So, like right there, watch the special teams. Let's see if Ventrone is not just how's Dustin Hopkins kicking, but are they getting lined up? Are they doing? He says basically penalties come from laziness and poor practice habits. So let's watch.
You mentioned Dustin Hopkins. I lied.
Yes.
I'll get you out of it. Like Cade York was the talk of the entire camp, not for a good reason. Now he's gone. Dustin Hopkins. I mean, we're just kind of assuming. I don't think it's a matter of you do or don't have confidence. You feel a little more confident than you did with Cade, but I don't know what that equates to come Sunday afternoon at Cleveland Browns Stadium, Terry.
Well, in general, veteran kickers tend to be better.
Yeah.
Just because they've been through it.
Yeah.
Hopkins has an interesting career. If you look at it, he was drafted by Buffalo. So drafted now, not there. 2013, didn't make the team. Then he got hurt. Didn't kick at all in 13. 14, he gets caught, picked up by New Orleans, practice squad guy, doesn't kick. So it isn't even until his 3rd year, 2015 in Washington, this guy kicks in a regular season game. Then he was able to establish himself as a kicker. And then, of course, he moved on then later on to the Chargers. A big thing with him is hamstrings and groin pulls. That's why I was glad. I forgot who the kicker they brought in here. And I'm like, get another guy on that practice squad so that you're not sitting there, looking for a kicker 2 days before the game because your veteran hurt himself. Now, he's not very good from over 50. I wish they had a guy who was, but you make your money from 40 to 49, and he's been very good at that.
Oh, we'll take that all day. We'll take.
I think he's like 85%, 86% from 40 to 49. He's 13 of 26 from 50 and above. And I kind of looked. Phil Dawson, the immortal Phil Dawson, of course, he was like something like almost 70% from beyond 50, kicking in the wind and all that other garbage. And Justin Tucker is not allowed. I mean, that's like Shohei Ohtani in his prime comparing that. I mean, this guy, you should see him when he's kicking in Cleveland, to practice for the game. It's like, I swear, he's like standing at Kelly's Island trying to kick the ball, he's like 60 yards away, I know he's got this whole thing. He's playing the wind and all those guys, but it's stunning to see this guy, how he practices in that.
Yeah. And that's, boy, I'll tell you, it's not even just game-winning kicks. Like you talk about momentum shifts, getting 3 before the end of the first half, and then you get the ball to start the second.
Mm-hmm.
Those are little things that become big things that maybe make you a playoff team. So we hope that those things all happen this season.
I remember a story along those lines. I can't remember what game it was, but Phil had missed a kick fairly early in the game or whatever. It was a close game, defensive game. And then later on, it was like a snowy thing, and he kicks the ball through the uprights, and they win. So I'm talking to DeQuell Jackson after the game, and I said, were you guys concerned with Phil? No. He's Phil Dawson. We know if he misses one, he's not missing 2. That's his miss. See, that's where you want.
Yeah.
Whereas a young kicker, he missed that one. Uh-oh, here comes. He's going to miss the next 3. See, it's amazing. And that the kicker himself feels that mindset, Chico.
He is Terry Pluto, one of the best in the business. Been covering the Cleveland scene for a long time. You can follow him at Terry Pluto with Cleveland.com, Cleveland Plain Dealer, the Scribbles, the Terry's Talking, all must-read columns. Terry, I'm dating myself too, but I can remember getting when I lived and worked in Erie, Pennsylvania, right out of school. I would have the Country Fair deliver a News Herald, get a News Herald delivered simply for Hal Lebovitz, because I had to read his column. Mm-hmm. And as I continue to get older and older, like yours is the must read. Yours is the must read. You do a phenomenal job, and I always appreciate when I get
thank you. And anything with Hal's high praise, and he was a mentor to me too. So appreciate it, Chico. We had a good time.
All right, we will do it again soon, buddy, and good luck this season, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
You take care.
All right. That is Terry Pluto, Cleveland.com, and Cleveland Plain Dealer. That's going to do it for this edition on this. You used to having the guests at noon, but 12:30. So we're done, Bohm. We're done. We will be back tomorrow, of course, 11 to 1, talking some baseball. Hopefully the Guardians don't give up 20. And we'll be talking to Brett Boone, the former All-Star second baseman. His Mariners, oh boy, that's a fun race going on right now. We'll talk about that. And, of course, continue to get you set up. Browns will be back on the practice field. And we'll see if Denzel Ward's back on the practice field as they get ready for the Cincinnati Bengals. And we get ready for the Bengals. And you get ready for the Bengals. Sunday, 10 o'clock a.m. You can be early. Burke Lakefront Airport, big play. We're going to be broadcasting live from 10 a.m. to noon. Josh Cribbs will be there. Hanford Dixon will be there. Nick Padone will be there. I'll be there. Everybody's going to be there, including you, hopefully. Fun. We got drinks. We've got food. We've got games, all kinds of stuff. And, of course, most importantly, getting you ready for Sunday afternoon. I think that's my cue to shut the hell up, so I'll do just that.
I literally just bumped the mouse. I'm so sorry.
That's all right, buddy. It's the Chico Bormann Show. Back with you tomorrow until Wednesday at 11 a.m. Make it a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. See ya.